Under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Thank you.
Dr. Anthony Fauci has declined another Senate request to testify, opening a new front in Republicans' COVID-19 investigations. The former top U.S. health official rejected a voluntary appearance before Senator Ron Johnson's investigative subcommittee. Fauci's attorney reportedly argued that another hearing could amount to political harassment following his contentious July Senate testimony. Johnson is separately examining Fauci's pandemic decisions and the federal government's response to COVID-19, as per reports. His investigation also includes questions surrounding the safety, effectiveness, and development of COVID-19 vaccines. The refusal comes as Republicans pursue contempt proceedings against Fauci over his previous Senate testimony. Senator Ron Johnson revealed what he plans to do next after Fauci refused to appear for the Senate interview. According to the information, Johnson said his subcommittee will continue gathering Fauci's records, seek interviews with people who worked with him, and explore legal options before deciding its next steps. Republican senators voted along party lines to hold Fauci in contempt after he invoked the Fifth Amendment repeatedly. During the July hearing, Fauci reportedly invoked his constitutional right against self-incrimination more than 100 times. Senator Rand Paul has pushed for the contempt referral to be sent directly to federal prosecutors in Washington. Paul argues that Fauci's previous pardon from former President Joe Biden could affect his ability to invoke the Fifth Amendment. Biden had issued Fauci a preemptive pardon before leaving office, covering potential federal offenses related to his public service. Paul contends that the pardon removed the threat of federal prosecution that would justify Fauci's Fifth Amendment claims. Fauci and his legal team have rejected that interpretation and maintain their position regarding his constitutional rights.
Welcome back to the channel. A high-stakes political showdown has erupted on Capitol Hill as one of the nation's most prominent public health figures makes an unprecedented move. Dr. Anthony Fauci has formally invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, refusing to answer key questions regarding his actions and decisions during the COVID-19 pandemic. The decision sent shockwaves through the Senate committee room, leaving lawmakers stunned and sparking an immediate fiery clash over legal privileges, accountability, and the boundaries of congressional oversight. Let's dive into the conversation.
Well, nothing says honesty like taking the Fifth, huh, Doc? Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color's the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyers sitting behind you now shifting nervously in their chairs, they know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people. But I think I know why you're doing it. It's because you don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic you got rich, didn't you? You got rich while people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich, and not only were you doing that, you were using federal employees with taxpayer money to apply for and solicit cash prizes for you personally, cash prizes totaling over $1 million. You did all of that during the pandemic, didn't you? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
You remember Greg Folkers? Who was that?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Your chief of staff is the answer. Do you remember Patricia Conrad? Who was that?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
She was your personal assistant. And what were these individuals doing in the depth of the pandemic in November of 2020 when millions of Americans were suffering from COVID? What were they doing? I tell you what they're doing. Folkers was on your behalf soliciting and gathering information for a cash award. Let's look at it. We've got his email right here, right over my shoulder. Volker says, I'm working on this nomination for the Dan David Award for Fauci. We need to beef up the COVID part. Do you have language in the can that you could share that delineates how we responded in new ways to COVID? He sends this to multiple federal employees. What was the Dan David Award? Do you remember, Doc?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
It was a $900,000 cash award. $900,000 cash award. And he got it because he used federal employees to get it. And this wasn't the only award, was it, Dr. Fauci? In fact, you applied for and received at least 8 other federal cash prizes on federal time using federal employees and federal resources. Here they are over my shoulder. Besides the Dan David Award, you've got the Partnership for Public Service, you've got the Adelson Prize, you've got the Smithsonian Award, you've got the National Academy of Medicine's Award, you've got the CDC Foundation. In fact, you turned your staff into a full-time application machine. You actually wrote to people and said, do you think maybe I'd qualify? And you got cash for all of this. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 employees, was it? In fact, you used 8 separate federal employees on federal time using federal resources to solicit cash awards. Isn't that true?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Here they are right over my shoulder. Here's all of them. The people that you use, federal employees, so that you could go and get cash money. And the most hilarious part is that you weren't content to even dragoon them into applying for all of these cash awards. You then had them go out to the ethics agencies and ethics watchdogs and demand that you be able to get the money. That's right. We've got it in your emails. Your staff and employees on federal time, using federal resources, being paid with federal dollars, are soliciting cash for you, and then they're turning around and saying to the agency, we don't want just an answer, we want to get to yes, because Fauci wants the money. He wants it. We want to get to yes, and yes takes time. This is your chief of staff again, using federal email to pressure the agency's own ethics people so that you could get money, so that you could get rich. And it violated the law, didn't it, Dr. Fauci? Didn't it? It violated the law, didn't it? It is a question. You can answer. Go ahead.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Federal law, as you very well know, prohibits the solicitation of cash awards or other personal benefits for federal employees. And it certainly prohibits using your own employees to do this. 5 CFR section 2635-205B, it says it right there in black and white. You cannot use federal resources, federal dollars, federal employees, federal offices, federal email, federal time to solicit cash awards, and you did all of it, and the worst part is thousands of people were dying while you were doing it. You were supposed to be the nation's doctor, and you were playing one on TV, but this is what you were doing with your time. Isn't that true?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah, I can see why. I can certainly see why. You know what I can't quite figure out is that why you were so obsessed with it, because you're already rich. I mean, and your scheme worked here. I mean, your net worth now is north of $12 million. You got over $1 million in cash awards during COVID, during a 12-month, 24-month span during COVID. $1 million you knocked down in cash money using federal resources. Now you're worth more than $12 million. You've got a pension that in its first year paid out north of $400,000 a year. 1 million people dead, you're getting rich. 1 million people dead, you're using federal employees to get cash awards for you. 1 million people dead, and you're here taking the fifth because you don't want to admit that what really happened in all that time was a multi-month, multi-year course of self-dealing. Isn't that true, Dr. Fauci?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah, well, silence is admission. And here's the real thing. At the end of the day, it wasn't just about the money, really, was it? It was really about a power trip. I mean, through all of this, you want to be the most famous scientist in the world. You were so focused on getting every award and every drop of cash that you could, all because you wanted to be on TV. You wanted to be the sun god of science. You wanted to be the guy who was in charge of it all. You wanted to lambast Trump. You wanted to make sure that nobody else stole your spotlight. You wanted to be the guy. You had time to sit for InStyle magazine. Here's what you were doing with your time. You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you can't answer questions for the American people. You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you're here taking the fifth. You could sit for InStyle magazine and get $1 million in cash awards, but now the cat's got your tongue. I bet he does. I tell you what, here's my conclusion from all of this. This was really all about you the whole time. Somewhere along the way, you lost your way. You may have been a good public servant at one time, I don't know. But what I can tell you from reading your emails now, from looking at what you did, how you used your employees, somewhere along the line, it became all about you. You became a narcissist and a megalomaniac and a liar. And you've lied to the American people, and you've lied to this body. And you've disgraced your profession by doing it. You called yourself the most famous scientist in the world. You've done more to harm science than anybody in my lifetime. And I hope you'll go home and write that in your diary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Anthony Fauci declined another formal Senate request to testify, marking a major escalation in Republican-led investigations into the federal government's pandemic response. The former top health official rejected a voluntary appearance before Senator Ron Johnson's investigative subcommittee, with legal counsel arguing that further hearings constituted political harassment following a contentious appearance in July. Undeterred, Senator Johnson confirmed that the subcommittee will move forward by subpoenaing records, seeking interviews with former staff members, and pursuing formal contempt proceedings against Fauci. The core of the legal dispute centers on whether Dr. Fauci retains the right to invoke the Fifth Amendment following a preemptive pardon issued by former President Joe Biden. Senator Rand Paul and fellow Republicans contend that because the presidential pardon removes the threat of federal prosecution for past actions, the constitutional protection against self-incrimination no longer applies. Citing historical legal precedents such as Brown v. Walker, lawmakers argue that the privilege cannot be claimed when prosecution is legally impossible. However, Fauci's legal team maintains that his constitutional rights remain fully intact, setting up a potential showdown in federal court. During the hearing, senators presented internal emails alleging that Dr. Fauci used federal employees and government resources to secure lucrative private cash awards during the height of the pandemic. Evidence presented showed aides soliciting nominations for honors such as the $900,000 Dan David Award, alongside at least 8 other financial prizes. Lawmakers argued that using federal time, staff, and email systems to pursue personal financial compensation violates federal ethics regulations, specifically 5 CFR paragraph 2635.2105b, while Fauci repeatedly responded to each specific allegation by invoking his Fifth Amendment rights. The questioning intensified as lawmakers pointed to Dr. Fauci's growing net worth, which reportedly exceeds $12 million, alongside an annual federal pension paying over $400,000. Critics accused him of self-dealing and prioritizing media appearances over public duty, while millions of Americans suffered. The proceedings concluded with sharp rebukes from senators who asserted that taking the fifth in the face of detailed ethics allegations severely damaged public trust in scientific and medical institutions. The clash between Congress and Dr. Fauci marks a dramatic moment in post-pandemic oversight, raising fundamental questions about ethics, presidential pardons, and constitutional rights. As Republicans push to refer the matter to federal prosecutors, the legal battle over congressional authority and public accountability is far from over. If you found this breakdown insightful, make sure to hit the like button, leave a comment with your thoughts below, and click subscribe for more in-depth coverage on critical legal and political news.